India has been gripped by protests after the death of a student who was gang raped in Delhi last month. But the issue of violence against women goes far beyond this one case. Now, for Crossing Continents, Natalia Antelava investigates how thousands of girls and young women in India are forced into a life of oppression and abuse. Listeners may find some details of her report disturbing.
Since the girl is a minor child, she has been trafficked. We will go and see and do the raids. And if the girl is there, we will do the rescue operation.
We're following two police vans, and all we know is that we're heading towards the village where this 14-year-old girl is being held. She was kidnapped about a year ago. She's been missing since, until last month her father, who is also with us, managed to find out where she's being held. We follow the policemen down a narrow lane in a small town in the North Indian state of Haryana. They simply walk into a two-story house. The girl is in the sitting room. She's been sweeping the floor. Thin and small, she stands in the middle of the room, still clutching the broom in her hand, as policemen in beige uniforms tower above her. They ask her how she got here. "I was kidnapped," she says. Then, an anxious older woman pushes her way through the ring of policemen. She's the owner of the house. She's lying. She's not 14, the woman screams. She's 18 and I bought her from her own parents. Police direct the girl out of the house. The woman follows.
So they're all getting into the police car and the mother-in-law is coming with. Do we know where they're going? God, we're followed by a huge crowd of people, all the neighbors. There are a couple dozen people here following us, all men.
An hour later, at the police station, the woman is still insisting she has done nothing wrong.
She's saying that the parents were there when the girl was given away in marriage to her son, and that she comes from a poor family and she's being accused of things she's not done.
There aren't enough girls here. Many buy girls from the outside, she cries. We treated her well. But the girl, whose name is Ruxana, tells a very different story. She had been brought here by force, she tells the police. She talks about daily intimidation, beatings and rape. Her father cries as he listens. Soon, he'll be able to take her home. Every year, tens of thousands of girls disappear in India. They're sold into prostitution, domestic slavery, and increasingly into marriage. I'm Natalia Antelava, and for Crossing Continents, I'll be investigating how attitudes towards women in one part of India are breeding violence and organized crime across the country.
After the chaos and the madness of Indian cities, this place feels so quiet, so peaceful, and so cut off from the rest of the world. And it is. It took us hours to get here, and we've now swapped our car for a bicycle rickshaw because there is no other way of getting around the villages of Sundarbans.
In Bengali, Sundarbans means beautiful forest. Stretched along the Bay of Bengal, the area is famous for its wild tigers and popular among tourists. But not many of them venture to the really remote villages. We just arrived in the office of the only local organization that deals with trafficking issues. These guys work out of a small room that has one computer in it. But waiting outside on the balcony are three families whose daughters went missing just a few days ago. Sanjit, who works from Childline, is now taking down details from this one family. The father is saying that their daughter, who is 16, went out to see a doctor 7 days ago and she never returned.
I'm absolutely helpless, I'm clueless. Had she run away with a boy, I would have got some sort of consolation or a message, at least from someone in the village. But I have absolutely no clue about her whereabouts.
Why did you not go to the police? Why are you here?
Now, if police is going to help us or not, I have no idea.
Now, Sanjit, and how often do you get cases like this one? How often do you get parents coming in saying that they're missing a child?
Per day, two. 2 cases like this per day, on an average.
2 cases a day? 2 families a day come and complain? That's a lot.
We visited 5 villages in a district of the Sundarbans called South 24 Pargana. In every one of them we found several families who have missing children. Trafficking peaked here after a deadly cyclone destroyed the rice paddies around the area 5 years ago, leaving many without any source of income. Bimal Singh was one of them. His daughter Bisanti had just turned 16 when she got an offer of a job in Delhi.
She took our blessings and left by train in the morning. She told me, "Don't worry, Dad. I'll come back soon with the money and then you'll be able to marry me off." After that, she never came back.
Bilasi, her mother, still cannot believe it.
I have not been able to sleep. I don't eat. It's become very difficult for us. Please find my daughter. Please bring her back.
We can't find Basanti, but we tell the parents about an organization in Delhi which rescues girls. Suddenly hopeful, Basanti's father, Bimal, says that he wants to meet them.
Basanti's dad is packing for his trip. He's actually deciding which one of his 2 shirts to wear on the train to Delhi. It's going to be a long journey. To Kolkata first, and then on a train to Delhi.
Bimal follows his daughter on the boat out of the Sundarbans, then a long journey towards Calcutta. With its choking roads and busy markets, the capital of West Bengal is both the source of and destination for victims of trafficking. Many young women are brought in from across the border in Bangladesh and Nepal. But an increasing number are Indian, and it's not just girls from villages. Debangana just turned 18. 2 years ago, neighborhood boys invited her to a local fair. There, someone, a stranger, offered her a soft drink. The next thing she remembers is waking up on a train. A day later, she found herself in a brothel in Delhi.
These things happen here. They told me, "You have been sold. You have to do this work." I never agreed, but they forced me to do it. If I protest, they threatened to torture me. They did beat me and wouldn't give me food.
After several months, Dabangana's mother tracked her down and with the help of police in Delhi, rescued her. She got her daughter back, but not the life she has worked so hard to build. The family is no longer accepted by the community here.
Devangana's mother is such a feisty woman, and she is clearly so determined to get her family back on track and to move on. But it's also so obviously difficult to do that because they're surrounded by the reminders of what happened to them. None of the neighbors speak to them anymore. Their house has been stoned several times, and now the man who trafficked Devangana is out on bail, and he's been threatening them.
I'm very angry. The traffickers always threaten us, saying they will throw acid on my daughter's face if I don't withdraw the case against them.
Devangana and her mother want her story to be known. This shouldn't happen to anyone else, the mother tells me as we leave. Trafficking humans is an organized, complicated and secretive trade. It took us weeks, but finally we managed to set up a meeting with a man who sells women for a living. We meet in a dark house in one of Calcutta's slums. The man doesn't want to be identified. But he's open to talking. He says business is going well.
The
demand is rising, so I have been able to buy 3 houses back in Delhi.
So how many girls a year do you traffic?
I traffic 150 to 200 girls a year.
Tell me, how does it happen? How do you get the girl?
I persuade the parents. I tell them we will give the girls good jobs in Calcutta or Delhi. That can change their lives. Once they are convinced, we get them to Calcutta and traffic them. At the beginning, we tell the parents we are taking them to work as domestic help, and once they get to the bigger cities, they get into all sorts of things. My job is to get them to the domestic placement agencies, and then what happens after that is not my concern.
How old are the girls?
Some are 10 or 12 years old. Others are older, 13, 14 and up.
Do the local people in Sundarbans know what you do?
I don't give my number to anyone. I have guys who work for me in the Sundarbans. They get the girls. We have to bribe the local politicians. Without their support, we can't do this business.
Does the police know what you do?
The police are well aware of what I do. I have to bribe the police in every state. We have to always let the police know how many girls we are taking. We can't transport the girls without informing the police. We have to pay the police at important police stations, first at the Sundarbans, then in Calcutta and then in Delhi.
The man says he earns around £700 from selling each girl. But he also complained that the central government's recent awareness campaign has made his operations more difficult.
Guard Shavdhan! Guard Shasthan!
At the police station in Calcutta, they denied allegations of involvement. The head of the criminal investigation unit in charge of anti-trafficking, Shankar Chakraborty, admitted corruption may be a problem, but not in his unit.
This is one of the allegations which may be easily brought against police, because police is doing very, very well in this field of human trafficking. But the allegation of corruption against police is, I think, is very negligible. The fight is really on, no doubt.
Activists agree that when it comes to police awareness, things have improved. Every police station is now supposed to have an anti-trafficking police officer. At district levels, special units have been set up. I'm right in the center of India's fight against one of its biggest organized crime networks. Every year, this anti-trafficking unit in Calcutta investigates tens of thousands of cases from all over West Bengal. And the mismatch between the scale of the problem and the resources they have is pretty staggering. This is a one-room office with 2 computers, a few phones, 8 officers, and hundreds of handwritten paper files.
We are trying to get to solve this problem, that how could I get some more manpower, some digital support, some other support, Xerox machine, some telephone, laptop we need.
I'm trying to make my way through the crowd at Calcutta's Howrah train station. This place is overwhelming. And it's so easy to become invisible here. I couldn't tell you whether the man I just passed is a father traveling with his daughter or a trafficker who is transporting his victim. But what I can tell you, based on the sheer number of missing children in India, is that right at this moment, at this very station, there are girls who have been sold. Miraculously, in this massive crowd, we have just managed to find Visanti's father and Sanjit from Childline NGO back in Sundarbans. He's taking Visanti's father to Delhi, where they're going to try and look for her. I have to say the father looks quite overwhelmed. Are you hopeful?
Yes, I'm quite hopeful. I'm quite positive.
Visanti's father is getting onto the train that took his daughter to Delhi when she was trafficked. And it is so crowded inside, so stuffy, so crowded. There are 1, 2, 6, 7, 8 people on a bench that's meant for one, and apparently as it goes towards Delhi, it gets even more crowded. A 36-hour journey here. Oh dear. Police sources tell us dozens of girls make this very journey every day. None of them know where they will end up. "36 hours later, Bimal rings the door at the offices of the organization he hopes will help him. Shahra Vahini, or Power Brigade.
Come. Boso.
Bimal shows Rishi Khan, the group's founder, the only piece of evidence he has, a business card of the placement agency which recruited Bisanti. So Rishi, do you think you'll be able to help him?
We have been given some details of Delhi address, because Delhi has been flooded with all kind of placement agencies, illegal placement agencies who bring girls from the source areas like Bengal, Assam, Jharkhand. And these placement agencies keep all these girls in the suburbs of Delhi, and then they do all kind of illegal activities. I've just spoken with some of the police team. We are trying to coordinate with the police today, and we will do the raids probably today.
But aren't you worried that because she's been missing for so long, she might no longer be there?
Even if she is no longer there, but if we catch the trafficker, we will get the clue. Where is she?
Rishi Kant, whose group, together with the police, has rescued hundreds of girls, is hopeful but also cautious. The agency may no longer exist. Even if it does, by now Bisanti could be anywhere, in a big city brothel or trapped as a servant in a household of India's growing middle class. Or she could have been taken further, to the northern states, where demand for women is on the rise. It's a really chilly, misty morning in the village of Bamla in Haryana, and I'm watching quite a scene. In front of me, about 12 men, all of them tall and fit, with nothing on apart from pieces of cloth tied around their private parts, groan and grunt as they wrestle each other. Across the courtyard of the wrestling club, their friends bathe in icy water. None of these young men are married. They were born around the time that ultrasound technology first made it possible to determine the sex of an unborn child and to abort the female ones. UNICEF says the result is a problem of genocide proportions, and that 50 million women are missing in India because of feticide and infanticide, the killing of baby girls. The Indian government disputes these estimates, but Rishi Kant, who's come to Haryana with us, says the reality of life here is hard to argue with.
It's such a social issue that every house is facing this problem. Every house is facing in Haryana, Punjab. There are people, there are young boys who are not getting girls. And when you talk to them, they are frustrated.
The women from the rest of India are paying a price for this frustration. This community centre helps victims of trafficking. Among the dozen women gathered in the room, some say they've accepted their fate. Some don't leave because they're too ashamed to go back. All were sold into marriage. And even though abortion and sex determination are now illegal in India, and even though they were brought here because of the already skewed sex ratio, all were expected to produce baby boys. This 25-year-old woman from the state of Bihar, who was to be called Rupa, was sold into marriage in Haryana.
I was made to abort my baby 2 times. It was really sad. I felt really bad after that. I just gave up. I refused to have any more abortions and I escaped from that family.
In a nearby village, we attend another meeting. This time, it's all men. Khat Panchayats are influential community elders, and they've come together to discuss some of the pressing issues. Even before the notorious Delhi case, they talk about rape, which has risen dramatically in Haryana in recent months. Female feticide is also on the agenda. This speaker addressed what he called an alarming increase in rape cases. He says the reason is lack of modesty among women. Have you seen, he says, how they dress, how they sit suggestively on scooters? Another man tells me educating girls is what causes trouble here.
These days, society has become very educated, and the girls have started eloping with their lovers. When girls bring shame on their own parents and behave like that, who would want a daughter? But anyway, it's women who prefer to do these abortions. Men have no part in it.
These very attitudes towards women in one part of India are affecting the whole country. Rishikant is angry.
The people of this state, Haryana, is not understanding that due to their problem of sex ratio, that they have to purchase these girls. And the poor girls from Bengal are sufferers. The problem is here, not in Bengal.
Police estimate that only about 30% of cases are reported. There are no statistics on how many girls end up sold into marriage. But again, both police and activists say the number is rising. Only a handful of trafficking victims are rescued. And even then, their lives are changed forever. A week after his organization helped the police to rescue 14-year-old Ruxana, Rishikant travels to India's border with Bangladesh to check on her.
Some confusion there seems. We're looking for Ruxana's village. We must be in the right neighborhood because one of the guys just said to us, you're looking for a girl who got lost in Haryana. Pointed us this direction.
Ruxana tells me about the day her childhood ended.
I was walking home during my lunch break at school. I have to go through a graveyard. There, 3 guys came from behind and dragged me into a car. I screamed, but they told me if I'm loud, they will kill me. They had a knife. They covered my face and I became unconscious. They brought me to train station and then we took the train to Delhi. I don't remember much as I was semi-conscious. Then we drove to the village at night by car. Once they got me there, I was literally under house arrest. There were 3 men in the house, my so-called husband and 2 brothers and their mum. I was made to do all the housework. They beat me if I didn't do it well. They told me that they had bought me, so I had to listen to what they say.
Of all these horrible things that happened to you, the kidnapping, the beatings, everything, the having to do the work, being treated like that. When you think back about things, what was the worst? What was the hardest?
I thought I will never see my parents again and I will have to spend all my life there. I cried all the time. I longed to come back to the village. He was a bad man. He used to do bad things to me. Whenever there was a fight, they used to beat me with their hands, and if it got serious, they used to beat me with sticks.
There was worse, but Ruxana doesn't want to talk about the rape.
Everyone, the whole village knows my story. I will never be able to get married now. I just want to stay at home and go back to school.
She's now safe, but the stigma Ruxana has to deal with is enormous. Her parents want the world to know about her story, but they too are worried about the future.
They've tainted her. No one wants to marry a girl who has been physically abused. We are poor and helpless, and I'm worried about her. I'm completely devastated. My heart is broken. I don't know what will happen.
With so much attention and gossip, Rishikant tells the parents that it's not safe for Rukhsana to stay in the village.
Everything is at stake, her life, her identity, her marriage and her image in the society. Everything is lost. And if you don't get any support from the state, that's 10 times more problematic.
We visit a shelter in Calcutta where Rukhsana is going to get help. It's home to 150 other young women.
When they come here, they are very, very traumatized. They are very, very traumatized. They need help. They are in depression. They wouldn't talk to people. Some of them are very aggressive.
Sanlab Homes, set up by Indrani Sinha, is one of the few facilities available for victims of trafficking, and one of the best. You wouldn't know it by looking at bare walls and old metal bunk beds. Small windows with thick metal rails add to the grim atmosphere. They have a television set here, but not much else. Money's tight and nowhere near enough to meet the growing demand. Indrani says she too has noticed that the number of girls sold into marriage is on the rise, driven by both the growing demand in relatively wealthy northern India and poverty here in Bengal.
We don't love our girl children. These states are killing their own. I mean, there is so much of feticide and infanticide. The girl-boy ratio is very, I mean, it's terrible. So naturally now they are going out to bring about girls from other poorer places. You know, it's also, you know, like lack of awareness or lack of knowledge, or, you know, even lack of gender sensitivity, lack of, you know, loving their own girl child, you know.
Indrani, like so many we have spoken to, is angry with India's politicians.
They're not interested, you know, because, you know, why do we have to still go and tell them that this is happening in our country? When so many girls are dying, when so many girls are being trafficked. And, you know, I mean, we are not talking about hundreds, we are talking about thousands. Until we can save our children, you know, this country wouldn't have any future.
There are plenty of people in India who love their daughters. Bimal from the Sundarbans is still waiting, still hoping for news of his Basanti. But increasingly, India as a whole is paying the price for the choices made by those who do not welcome girls. Fueled by poverty, corruption, and attitudes towards women, in India, the cycle of abuse carries on.
Crossing Continents was presented by Natalia Antelava. The producer was Natalie Morton. That was the last in the current series, but Crossing Continents will be back in March.